Claire and Dave, who are going to be talking about the story of Rock FM. This is a classical music station, I tell you. Absolutely.
Grime.
And I am going to be partly acting and do the slides.
Who's going down the pub?
Firstly, fantastic series, lovely. Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
And speak out.
I'll speak up here. Right, today we associate Rock FM with a licensed broadcaster, but it wasn't the first station with that name. In fact, we were. I'm Dave Fuller. This is Claire Mansfield, and we're going to today. We will tell you the story. I should have done this in red. Of pirate radio station Rock FM. Right.
So Rock FM was just one of thousands of land-based radio stations, and this is the story of our little part in history.
Yeah, right, okay. I use the name Dave Fuller, and my partner in crime is Claire Mansfield, but it hasn't always been the case. In fact, until several weeks into our broadcasting, we didn't even have surnames. Our first names are real, but our surnames are taken from our favourite tipple. That's a tradition that's been carried on by everyone who joined after we started the station.
So it's summer 1985, and Dave and I had met some months earlier in a pub on the top of Highgate Hill after being introduced by my boss. I just left a career in television and was a huge music fan. Dave was heavily into CB radio and a pirate radio listener, also known as an anorak. You might have heard the term. One thing led to another, and in a drunken handshake at the end of the evening, we had somehow agreed to start a radio station. Our first broadcast is embarrassing to this day, but let's tell the story.
I thought it would be easy. As with Blind Faith, I should have done this in black. We took a van on to Hampstead Heath. We attached some wires to it and we held them up with a helium balloon. Unfortunately, the van got stuck and the police had to tow us off of Hampstead Heath. As often said, that if you don't want to get the collar felt, let the copper laugh, get the copper to laugh. And they haven't stopped laughing since, so we're not going to get our collar felt in Hampstead anymore.
So I decided that our second attempt was going to be more private, so we took our several party balloons up to a field which was conveniently situated close to the Crooked Billet pub in St Albans. This time we were busted by the farmer's wife, so we gave up and completed our journey to the boozer without the transmitter and balloons, which had both been confiscated by the aforementioned and most indignant lady.
Yes. Well, I didn't hear from Cliff some time after that, but fate did give us a second chance. I've been working with two fellow CBers on the idea of commissioning a more professional rig. This time it was 200 watt transmitter. We purchased it from an established pirate radio station, and with the help of my fellow CBers, we got it working. So now, reunited with Claire, the four of us made plans to test it out.
So the test transmission from Rock FM took place from the roof of Twyford House, a 16-storey block in Tottenham, on the 10th of August 1986. It's worth noting that in 1986 the security of London's tower blocks was almost non-existent. Policy at the time was to consider the interior of high-rise buildings as public space, so access to the blocks was easy.
Yeah, 4 months in, we had no money, we had little experience, and in all honesty, we didn't have a lot of hope. So we advertised for help with one of the weekly newspapers, and that got to the right place.
We used to drink in a pub called the Moss Hall Tavern in North Finchley, which had two bars, a rather nice saloon bar at the front, with a notorious biker's bar to the rear. We referred to it as the back of the Moss, and it became our office.
Yeah, it's a place of anarchy, with knives, snakes, shotguns being traded openly in the bar. That's true. Also a group of radio enthusiasts, us, discussing which of the tower blocks were going to be best to use. You really need to be there. I think this is a good time to pay a tribute to Bear Freeman, as he was one of the regulars at the Moss. Today, the building is still there, but the heart's been ripped out of it, and it's now a restaurant.
So there was a method to our seeming madness, and that was to find the people who had the right stuff. The people who joined our group would be dealing with worse, and it's worth noting that all our team have gone on without exception to do extremely well in life.
Yes. Right. You do the rest. I can't do this bit. At any one time, isn't it? At any one time, a member of our team needed to stand and guard the rig. Originally, we had to plug in a cassette recorder straight into the transmitter and then flip the tape every half hour. One night, the rival pirate station turned up and we were staggered at our naivety. They told us that pleading innocence while holding the program cassette was very unlikely to get us off the hook. They were right, of course, and when they offered us assistance, we gladly accepted.
So one of the station's more interesting linking systems travelled through the mains, imaginally called a mains link. Let's explain what our link system is. The transmitter has to be placed as high as possible, and for practical reasons, the studio had to be easily accessible, so the two sites had to be linked. This is called the link. And in our case, we linked during using the electrical mains. It was untraceable as the link could be heard on every single floor of the tower block. So 100 or more flats would have to be searched to find the studio. Time did not allow the DTI to do that, so we were safe. In fact, our engineers, most of which came from Phoenix Radio Analysis Restaurant, became so good at hiding the links that in 5 years, none of us ever had our collars felt.
Yes. Moving on, 6 months, the project was in trouble again, as things were not good between the founding members. 2 of our inaugural members had already left, and 4 were about to resign, including Claire. The project's problem was that originally the founding members wanted a heavy metal rock-based format, but the engineers tended towards a more AOR commercial service, as they were providing technical support. Their opinion overruled the core objectives. The argument still persists today, but whether it was right or wrong, well, things moved on.
So initially, the move to 94.3 allowed us the bandwidth necessary to broadcast in stereo.
Yeah, go on.
Sorry. When we started the project back in 1986, there was no competition for frequency, and to be honest, our first transmitters tended to drift up and down the frequency depending on the weather. We found better transmitters that didn't drift, but the 89 to 90 megahertz space was getting crowded, so we moved to a different part of the band and relaunched the station on 94.3 megahertz, this time in stereo.
Yeah, with higher technical standards, the station continued to gain listeners throughout 1987 and 1988. So many, in fact, that it allowed us to compile our own top 100 tracks from listener responses, in the same way that much larger stations did. We can tell you now that the number 1 was Stairway to Heaven, and that was by quite some way.
Rock FM now had the technical knowledge to completely revamp the operation. Previously, output had been recorded and the recordings were fed into the transmitter, but now the station prepared to go live through a complicated network of remote switching link repeaters, and against all odds, it worked.
Yeah, the second incarnation of Rock FM was slicker and more professional, reflecting the better technical standards from the new engineering and presentation team. And at last, we were working together as one unit. We had also earned respect from our competitors as the radio station could now defend its frequency against all comers. But it was becoming a lot more difficult as the space on the FM band was rapidly running out.
So on air, it was all go with promoted gigs, a live feed from the London Marathon, and even a wedding celebration between Dave and our indie specialist Dana J. It was a mad time. Was the wedding real? Sorry, that's between Dave, Dana and the tax man.
We proved how imaginative radio programming can be. The ideas came from the whole team, and I think a special mention should be given to the memory of Arthur Burton, who sadly left us last year.
So initially the move to 94.3 allowed us the bandwidth necessary to broadcast in stereo, but to illustrate just how crowded the FM band had become, just a year or two later, on 94.3, we had less than 50 kilohertz to play with, and the idea of stereo had flown out of the window due to lack of space.
Yeah, we decided our best option was to change frequency again, this time to, I think it was 101.4. That was a big mistake. Again, we attempted to relaunch the radio station. This was one of the newly announced frequencies to the extended public broadcast spectrum, having previously been used by the police services. The problem was that a new generation of radio receivers had been launched into the market with direct digital tuning, and nobody could find us.
So just a couple of years previously, listeners had to manually tune up or down the dial and would invariably stop if they found something interesting. But now a listener had to directly dial in a frequency, so the exploratory part of tuning that radio set had disappeared. The days of traditional knob twiddling had ended.
This time, we lost a lot of listeners. A lot of our listener base had disappeared, and despite some truly original programme, we failed to attract enough new listeners. We couldn't justify the time and the effort required to keep the station running. Rock FM made its last transmission as a pirate on the 25th of March 1990, and as tradition dictated, the transmitter was raided and closed down by the authorities halfway through the final broadcast. With that, it seemed that Eric and company had made their final statement.
So sometime after, the Rock FM team made an application to the Shadow Radio Authority for a London radio licence, which was rejected. The team did, however, make 2 restricted service licence applications for events that were accepted. RFM took its final bow at the 1991 Magna Carta Bikers Rally on the 14th of July 1991.
Right, where are we now? Right. Rock FM was followed by other rock stations, including London FM, S-City Radio, and the short-lived but highly regarded Radio Jennifer. I was saying that because it was mine.
Are you... 2 minutes?
2 minutes! Oh, this is the end, right?
Shall I just read?
Yeah, go on then.
It pioneered an all-female lineup, and not to not forget Q102, which mutated into XFM, the winner of the London Licence Award. But the age of rock radio was over, replaced by a new wave of dance and rap stations such as Kiss FM that would lead to a resurgence of British R&B music, the legacy of which lives on today. Remnants of the original team tried to win one further radio licence, this time for a new music station proposal for Kent called AM Rock. The application was declined following the loss of our proposed transmission site. So what of the future? Land-based pirate radio stations still broadcast, especially in London, but the heyday is seemingly over, with most broadcasters preferring to go online. Interestingly, what started off as a digital system of dots and dashes sending a message is now the same digital data sending sound, and with that our story arc is complete. Today we have a highly regulated radio network over 4 bands: long wave, medium wave, FM and DAB. It seems we never had it so good, but if you look under the veneer you will see only conformity and consolidation. We think there may be space on the now depreciated medium wave band to accommodate a new broadcasting idea. Our proposal is that we start a campaign to urge the government via Ofcom to give licences to a new tier of radio activity we will call amateur broadcasting, deregulating all or certain frequencies within the medium wave band. The aim will encourage innovation in both presentation and engineering and give new enthusiasts on both sides of the glass a public rehearsal stage prior to a full community station project. Maybe we can also draw on the vast technical experience and ability of the amateur radio community to oversee the technical standards of this new broadcasting group. It seems radical, but it's not a great leap and can probably be achieved using existing legislation, just a thought. For the last half hour, we've been, Dave Fuller and Claire Mansfield, with our own highly personal version of the RFM story, but we are just two of the 100+ people who were involved during its time, and this presentation is dedicated to the team. Thank you.